It begins in a beautiful kingdom, where the queen is obsessed with her beauty and constantly consults her magical mirror, which she believes holds the truth about who is the fairest in the land. The mirror responds to her inquiries, stating that there's a maid dressed in rags that is more fair than her, and her name is SnowWhite. This revelation sends the queen into a furious rage, as she cannot bear the thought of being outshone by anyone, especially her own stepdaughter. A lovely princess named SnowWhite lives with her wicked stepmother, the queen. She's cleaning the stairs and singing as she goes to draw water from the well. She wishes on the well for her true love to find her. And suddenly a prince passing by on a horse hears her, goes next to her, and sings with her. Startled, SnowWhite runs into her castle as the prince sings for her, and the queen sees their romance unfolding. In a fit of jealousy, the queen summons a huntsman and orders him to take SnowWhite deep into the forest and kill her. She demands that he bring back her heart in a box she gives him as proof of the deed. The huntsman is hesitant and asks her how can he kill the princess, but the queen threatens him, saying he will be penalized if he fails to do it. The huntsman, a rugged man with a conscience, takes SnowWhite into the woods, but finds himself unable to carry out the queen's orders. Instead, he reveals the queen's plan to SnowWhite, urging her to flee and never return to the castle. Terrified, SnowWhite runs deeper into the forest, her heart racing as she escapes the clutches of her malevolent stepmother. As she wanders through the dark and eerie woods, SnowWhite falls down crying, and she encounters various animals who are enchanted by her gentle nature. She tells them about her scary encounter and asks them what do they do to feel better. A bird begins singing, so she sings with the birds and animals around her. She feels better after singing and realizes she needs to find a place to sleep. A group of animals, including birds and rabbits, decide to help her, and they pull her clothes and guide her to a quaint little cottage nestled among the trees. She knocks on the door, but there's no one there, so she enters the cottage. It's very untidy, and she finds 7 little chairs, so she thinks 7 little children stay there. She thinks of cleaning the place to surprise and help the people that live there, so she gets to work with the help of her many happy little animals. She even washes their clothes. Despite the mess, she feels a sense of warmth and comfort in the cozy space. The cottage belongs to 7 dwarfs who work in a nearby diamond mine. The clock strikes 5, and they head home. SnowWhite goes to check what's there upstairs, and she sees 7 beds with names carved on them. Doc, the leader; Grumpy, who is skeptical and gruff; Happy, the cheerful one; Sleepy, always drowsy; Bashful, shy and timid; Sneezy, who suffers from allergies; and Dopey, the silent but lovable one. SnowWhite is tired and falls asleep on their beds. The animals hear the dwarfs returning home from work and run out of the house. When the dwarfs are close by, they're surprised to see that their chimney is smoking, and they get suspicious. They cautiously enter and search the house for any danger. They notice that their house has been cleaned. They're startled to find SnowWhite in their home. Initially, Grumpy is suspicious and wants her to leave, but the other dwarfs quickly warm up to her. They introduce themselves, and SnowWhite does too, and they realize that she's the princess. They ask her why she's here. Snow tells them that the queen wants to kill her, but she won't find her here. Grumpy says the queen knows magic, so she'll find her anywhere, and they're in danger if they protect her. But SnowWhite requests them not to send her away, as she doesn't have anywhere to go, and tells them that she'll cook and clean for them, and they agree to let her stay in exchange for her help with cooking and cleaning. They all smell the soup that's brewing and rush down to eat it. SnowWhite asks them to go wash their hands before they eat. Meanwhile, the queen asks the mirror who's the fairest of them all, and the mirror says SnowWhite. The queen tells the mirror that it is mistaken, as SnowWhite is dead in the forest, and she's holding her heart in the box. But the mirror tells her that SnowWhite is still alive, and she's living with the 7 dwarfs, and the heart she's holding is of a pig. Enraged by the news, she devises a new plan to eliminate SnowWhite. The queen, using a book of disguise, concocts a potion to transform herself into an old hag. She drinks it and transforms into an old hag, then uses her dark magic to create a poisoned apple to kill SnowWhite. As SnowWhite settles into her new life with the dwarfs, they form a close bond. She brings joy and laughter into their lives. The dwarfs are enchanted by her beauty and innocence. SnowWhite tells the dwarfs about her Prince Charming, and they are delighted. They soon realize it's bedtime, and SnowWhite tells them to go to sleep, but Doc tells SnowWhite that they will sleep down and she can sleep in their room upstairs. She agrees. The dwarfs peacefully sleep in different nooks around the house. The old hag finally creates the poisoned apple, which turns into a deep red color to disguise its poisonous nature. The old hag reads on about the poisoned apple to find that once taking a bite from the poisoned apple, SnowWhite can only be revived by love's first kiss. But she's not worried about that, as she feels the dwarfs will think she's dead and bury her alive. She sets off into the forest to find the cottage where SnowWhite lives. One day, as the dwarfs are leaving for work, Doc and the other dwarfs warn SnowWhite to be cautious about the queen, as she will use dark magic and not to trust strangers. But SnowWhite says she will be all right. As the dwarfs leave, SnowWhite begins making pies for the dwarfs and singing about meeting her Prince Charming. Suddenly, the queen, disguised as the old hag, arrives at the cottage and peeps through the window, asking SnowWhite if she's all alone and if the dwarfs are not at home. SnowWhite tells the old hag that she's alone and she's making pies. The queen tells her apple pies are the best pies and the dwarfs will love them. The queen offers SnowWhite an apple to taste it, but the birds who are her friends sense there's something fishy going on and attack the old hag. SnowWhite goes out to tell them to stop and calls the old hag in to rest and for some water. The animals go running toward the dwarfs to call them to help SnowWhite. The queen offers SnowWhite the poisoned apple, claiming it is a wishing apple and will grant her every wish. The animals get to the dwarfs and try to pull them toward SnowWhite. They realize she could be in danger due to the queen and rush towards her. Unaware of the danger, SnowWhite is tempted by the beautiful fruit given by the old hag. The hag tells her to make a wish. SnowWhite wishes for her Prince Charming, takes a bite, and as soon as SnowWhite does, she falls to the ground, lifeless. The dwarfs return home in a rush and see the old hag leaving their home and chase her. She climbs a hill and gets trapped on an edge, so she tries to push a huge stone on the dwarfs along the path they are climbing. But as she's doing that, lightning strikes her and the edge that she's on breaks and she falls to her death. When the dwarfs return home and find SnowWhite unconscious, they are devastated, and her animal friends couldn't leave her doorstep. They place her in a coffin made of glass and gold in the forest, mourning her loss. The dwarfs stand vigil over her, unable to comprehend the tragedy that has befallen their beloved friend. They weep for her, and the forest animals join in their sorrow. The prince who had previously encountered SnowWhite in the forest hears of her fate. The prince rides to the forest, where he finds the dwarfs standing guard over SnowWhite's coffin. Moved by her beauty, he leans down and kisses her. To everyone's astonishment, SnowWhite stirs and opens her eyes. The kiss of true love has broken the spell, and she awakens to find the prince smiling down at her. Overjoyed, SnowWhite embraces the prince, and the dwarfs cheer in celebration. The prince carries her to his horse, where she kisses all the dwarfs goodbye. She and the prince ride off into the sunset to live with him in his castle, and they live happily ever after. Thank you guys for watching. I hope y'all liked the video. If you did, make sure to smash the like button and subscribe to watch many more such cool recaps. And hit the bell icon too,